最近イグラと無関係に人が殺されてるって聞いた。お前なのか？
そうだよ。
Never had Akira so despise himself for being right. He looked away, unable to bear the absence of guilt on Keisuke's face. If anything, he seemed proud.
弱いんだよ。どいつもこいつも。その上バカが多い。バカなんかいくら殺したって同じだろ？どうせ生きてる意味もないんだろうから、俺を楽しませるぐらいの役には立ってもらわないとさ。
Every word drove Akira deeper into despair. He wanted to believe that this was a nightmare, that he was still unconscious and dreaming.
そういえばさ、俺のタグを奪おうとしたやついただろ？髪が真っ青の。あの時はさ、アキラに助けてもらっただろ？俺すっごい悔しくて申し訳なくってさ。だから。
With a conspirational smile, Keisuke pulled something from his pocket, then held out his hand.
俺ちゃんとやり返しに行ったんだよ。ほら。
Akira couldn't look away. Slowly, Keisuke's fingers unfurled. And there, on his palm, crusted with blood, sat a dog tag and a silver cross. Takeru.
お前。
Keisuke gave him a satisfied smile, then hurled the tag and the cross away.
あいつさ、アキラのところにも来ただろ。あいつに近づいたとき、アキラの匂いがした。懲りないよな。バカが何やったってどうにもならないのに。でもさ、あいつの血、ちゃんとあったかかったよ。いい感じだった。まだ口の中に残ってる。あいつの血の味。
Keisuke's eyes drifted shut, and he licked his lips in remembered ecstasy. The last desperate look on Takeru's face rose in Akira's mind, together with the stench of the blood-drenched dance floor.
なあ、俺すごいだろ？一人できっちり型をつけられてさ、強くなった。変わったんだよ、俺。
Akira tried to turn away, but Keisuke gripped his chin and yanked his head forward.
なあ、アキラ。なんか言えよ。
That was when Akira made the mistake of looking into Keisuke's eyes. What he saw there turned his blood to ice. Keisuke's eyes were clouded.
お前、ラインを。
Keisuke arched an eyebrow in mock surprise.
何言ってるんだよ、今さら。分かってたんだろ？
Akira's vision dimmed as the blood drained from his face. This was a scenario he had most feared, the one possibility he had refused to consider.
だからこうして強くなった俺がいるんだよ。もうアキラの後をただくっついて回るだけじゃない。アキラもそういう俺を望んでただろ？
No. Was that what Keisuke thought? Was that how he'd taken Akira's words? But that would mean...
そのために、ラインを使ったっていうのか。
それ以外の使い道なんかないだろう。イグラの連中だってみんなそうだ。強くなるために、力を手に入れるために使うんだよ。
そんなの、間違ってる。
へえ。
Keisuke's eyes narrowed, his expression suddenly blank, his hand tightened on Akira's jaw.
よく聞こえない。もう一回言ってみろよ。
間違ってる。
何が？
Through the grinning pain in his jawbone, Akira forced himself to speak.
ラインで手に入れた力なんて何の意味もない。
The instant he spoke, Keisuke seized him by the hair and drove his face into the floor. Sparks burst behind his eyelids, turning his vision white.
アキラってさ、結構自分勝手だよな。
As he tried to get up, Keisuke planted his boot on Akira's cheek.
この間俺になんて言ったよ。イライラするんだろ。付きまとわれるのが嫌だったんだろ。だから俺は誰にも従わず、俺の方法でやってるんだよ。アキラもそうしろって言ってたよな。なあ俺、なんか間違ったこと言ってる？なんとか言えよ、アキラ。
As his tone rose to a fever pitch, Keisuke bent to peer into Akira's face.
アキラさ、俺のこと嫌いだろ。
Black flames flickered in the depths of Keisuke's eyes, behind his twisted smile.
いつもそんな目で俺のことを見るよな。なあ、嫌いなら嫌いって言えばいいのに。ひどいよな、アキラも。今までわざわざ見下すために俺と一緒にいたの？
違う。うるさい。
Keisuke shook breaths harder on the side of his face. His skin burned. He could feel the pressure on his skull.
飴とムチってやつ。自分は涼しい顔してバカみたいにうろたえてる俺を気まぐれで助けてやったりして、機嫌が悪くなると突き放して、なんて言うんだろうな、ペットみたいなもんかな。面白かった、見てて気分良かった。こんなペットならもうちょっとそばに置いといてやろうとか思ってた。
No! Sweat pooled beneath him on the floor. Every attempt to speak turned into a groan.
まあどうでもいいか、今はそんなこと。
Keisuke looked down at him, eyes wide open and quiet smile on his face. He seemed to be enjoying Akira's pain.
なあ、知っ ってる？俺が今までに見たことあるアキラの顔。黙ってる顔、怒ってる顔、睨んでる顔。
He counted them off one by one on his fingers, starting from his thumb. His voice was bursting with childish exuberance.
これだけだぜ。たったこれだけしか知らない。だからさ、俺もっといろんな顔が見たいんだ。笑ってる顔や泣いてる顔も見たいけど、怯えてる顔とか怖がってる顔がいいかな。それからそうだな。
The weight on Akira's head abruptly went away, but just as he wondered if it was over.
最後に見たいのは死んじゃった時の顔かな。やっぱり。
Keisuke's tender whisper came together with a fierce blow to the back of his head. Awareness receded swiftly, carried on a wave of dizzying nausea, and the last things he saw before darkness claimed him were the drug-clothed eyes of his only friend. Akira clenched his teeth, something hot and wet was calling over his throat.
いいざまだな。
Looking up from Akira's neck, Keisuke let out a deep laugh. He was on top of Akira, holding him down with his arm pinned over his head. Akira glared back at Keisuke. Successive beatings had drained him of the strength to resist. But though his mind was foggy, he remained determined not to submit, even if the only weapon he had left was his glare.
その目、ずーっとそうやって見てろよ。これから起こることを全部さ、ゾクゾクする。
His index finger ran suggestively from Akira's throat to his collarbone, then traced its way down over his t-shirt to the center of his chest.
ああ、俺狂ってるって思う。けどさ、それじゃあ狂ってないってどういうこと言うんだろうな。アキラのことか。楽しそうに人殴ってたお前かな。なあ、いい加減目を覚ませよ。俺は知ってる。お前の中に隠れてるもう一人のお前を。
Keisuke murmured into his ear.
アキラ、お前の中にはさ、血を見たり痛めつけたり痛めつけられたりするのが大好きなもう一人のアキラがいるんだよ。アキラだけってわけじゃない。誰にでも必ずいるもう一人の自分が。普段は気づかないだけでさ、みんな理性的な自分が大好きだから。
Keisuke's tongue toyed with his earlobe. The wet noise churned his stomach, and he turned his head in an attempt to escape.
素直になれば楽しいのに、こんな風にさ。
Ending the sentence on a growl, Keisuke grabbed Akira's chin and prised his lips apart. Akira's shout of protest died in his throat as Keisuke forced his tongue inside. The thick muscle probed and plundered every inch of Akira's mouth. Where it found his tongue, it captured it, and dragged it back for Keisuke's lip to suckle. Akira knew what this was, a way to make him suffer, nothing more, and he was powerless to resist. Desperate for air, He fought to tear his jaw free. He succeeded, but in the process, his teeth sank into Keisuke's tongue. Keisuke instantly slugged him in the face, then grabbed his hair and yanked his head back, as a numbing heat spread through his cheek. Keisuke's eyes glittered inches away from his.
そのくらい反抗してくれないと面白くないよな。
The next thing he knew, Keisuke had beat down on his exposed neck as hard as he could. The groan licked past Akira's lips as he felt it puncturing his skin.
痛いか？痛かったら泣き叫んでいいんだぜ。
Keisuke glanced up at him with a short laugh, then set to licking the swollen bite wound. He couldn't believe what was happening. Keisuke, his friend, treating him like a plaything. But though the shock was intense, his anger was still stronger. It drove him to glower back.
そう来なくっちゃな。
A cruel smile played about Keisuke's mouth as he tightened his grip on Akira's arms. In one motion, he tore off Akira's jacket and yanked his shirt up to his collar. The dim moonlight shining through the entrance revealed his nipples and the smooth musculature of his chest.
なあ、男でもここって感じるのか？
He gave one of Akira's nipples a teasing flick. Paying careful attention to Akira's reactions, he then pinched it and kneaded and crushed it under his finger. He appeared to be enjoying himself immensely. A faint tingle, something Akira had never felt before, ran through him and he gasped.
男でもちゃんと立つんだ。気持ちいい？
Craning his neck so that he could still see Akira's face, Keisuke gave his nipple a lick.
感じるんだ。女みたいに。
The blood and scorn in his tone ignited Akira's shame.
どけよ、離せ。
He twisted and bucked, but Keisuke didn't budge. Instead, he looked down at Akira calmly, a hunter watching his prey exhaust himself in his trap.
興奮するなよ。まだまだこれからだぜ。しょうがないな。
Keisuke shook his head in mock disbelief, then pressed something sharp against Akira's breast.
暴れると刺さるよ。
It was the knife Rin had given him. Its ice cold, razor-sharp point lay poised against Akira's skin. The slightest movement could drive it into his heart.
このまま刺してもいいんだけどさ、それじゃつまらないだろう。お前がどれだけ無力かってことをもっと思い知らせないとさ。
Hatred and madness swirled in Keisuke's laughing eyes. An intense shudder, not unlike terror, ran down Akira's spine. Keisuke grabbed him by the hair and slammed his head against the floor, then stood and kicked him in the belly hard. Flashes of light erupted in the darkness behind his eyelids. He curled up, clutching his stomach. It felt like his innards were trying to escape from his throat. He was on the verge of blacking out when Keisuke flipped him onto his back. By the time his pain-addled brain caught on, Keisuke had dragged his chains and briefs down around his knees. He tried to resist, but couldn't work up the strength. All he heard was the sound of clothes rustling.
いい眺めだな。
Keisuke grinned savagely. Akira's nether region lay bare to the world. Overwhelmed by shame, he tried to rise, but Keisuke delivered a sharp kick to his side. Blood filled his mouth, and he moaned in agony. His eyes were wet with tears. The rain was making Keisuke crazy. He knew that. He knew. And yet... something boiled deep in his chest. An emotion he couldn't name.
そんな顔するなよ。いじめてる気分になるだろ。
Crouching beside him, Keisuke used his fingers to wipe the tears from his eyes.
これからだってのに、まだ音を上げるには早いよ。
With a cold smile, he pinned Akira's hands above his head again and pushed his thighs open. When he realized what Keisuke was planning to do, Akira's mind went blank.
ケイスケ。
男でも感じるってのは分かったからさ、もう一つ試してみたいことがあるんだ。
Keisuke fished through the pockets of his coveralls, then pulled something out and dangled it before Akira's eyes. It was a screwdriver, small and slender. He held it reverse, with the handle pointing out.
これをさ、どうすると思う？
At this point, Akira was no longer registering anything Keisuke said.
こうするんだよ。
Something cold touched him deep between his legs. The next instant, pain ripped him in two. His throat clamped down, his whole body still. This was nothing like being punched or slashed. He was being torn apart from the inside. Keisuke had buried the screwdriver in his rectum.
はあ、いきなりだとやっぱりダメかな。もうちょっと力抜けよ。
やめろ。
Biting back laughter, Keisuke bent down beside Akira's ear.
嫌だ。
The pain grew, filling his entire awareness. Part of his body was being wedged open, forced into a role that it had not been designed to perform.
痛い？我慢しろよ。あともうちょっとで全部入るからさ。アキラの中に。
His arms remained bone overhead, his fingers scrabbled at the air. He spat out trembling breath in an attempt to expel the pain. The awful sound of dry flesh convulsing reverberated through his body.
入った。すごいな。こんなとこ入りそうにないのにな。なあ、アキラ。どんな感じ？痛い？
Keisuke breathed an admiring sigh, then gave a screwdriver a twist. It was like having a hot knife thrust into an open wound. His body was instantly soaked with sweat.
どんな感じかって聞いてるんだよ。
His passion span, Keisuke withdrew the screwdriver and jammed it in again and again.
アキラ、顔すっごいエロいよ。
Akira had abandoned conscious thought, and the sensual words that tumbled from Keisuke's lips failed to reach him. Which was why it took him a second to realize what Keisuke had said.
もう一本 本いけるかな。
A metallic scraping noise rang out in his ears with terrible clarity. A voiceless scream burst from his throat. The two foreign objects clashed inside of him, creating muffled noises that echoed up his spine.
すごいな。アキラのここ、はち切れそうだ。
Keisuke refused to let up. He twisted, turned, thrust his tools deeper. Akira felt his inner membranes tear, and the pain of it seemed to fill his intestines. It felt like his body would shatter to pieces.
アキラ、痛いの？痛そう。すごい。そんな顔見たことない。最高。もっと見せてよ。もっと泣けよ。痛いって言えよ。アキラ。
Keisuke's voice was fevered, delirious. It sounded like he was chanting a spell. Every sensation made Akira sick, even the soft touch of Keisuke's hand on his cheek. The odd, moist sounds coming from his body were different from those made by a woman. For some reason, he recalled the club, lumps of flesh floating in pools of blood. Keisuke pulled the tools out of him, and the pain grew slightly duller. As his tormentor caught his breath, Akira went limp. But his respite was short-lived. The worst nightmare was about to begin. Keisuke lifted his leaden hips.
泣けよ。
The word sliced through him like a blade. A searing steak drove itself into his body, hotter and harder than anything before. It pushed deep, splitting him open.
アキラの中、すっげえ。あったかい。
Keisuke showed not a glimmer of concern. Lost in his ecstasy, he began to thrust. It felt like his guts were being ripped out through his rectum. His sight was a curtain of red. He couldn't think, he felt nothing but pain.
なあ、アキラ。クラブ見たんだろ？人たくさん殺されてたろ。ゾクゾクしただろ。
Keisuke hissed, his body rocking, gasping for breath. All Akira could do was shake his head from side to side.
ほら、思い出してみろよ。むせ返るようなあの匂い。流れてすぐの血はあったかくて、意外とサラサラしてて。やめろもっと叫べよ。泣きわめけよ。もっと痛くひどくしてやるからさ。
Without slowing his thrust, Keisuke reached out and wrapped his hands around Akira's neck. His thumbs were centered on Akira's trachea. Slowly, slowly, the pressure grew.
こうやるともっといいだろ。ほーら。
As his windpipe narrowed, his coughing gasps became convulsive sobs. No amount of thrashing could free his arms from their restraints.
すっげえ閉まる。
His expression wrapped. Keisuke moaned and sped up his assault. The dry slab of skin against skin, the wet, ugly noises that rose from where Keisuke had answered him, everything faded into the distance. Akira could no longer tell whether he was feeling pain or something else entirely. All he knew was that he desperately desired release.
認めろよ。自分も狂ってるってこと。
Somewhere through the haze, he thought he heard Keisuke's voice. It came together with a powerful thrust that scraped his back against the floor. Was it his mind that burst like a blinding wet sun, or was it his own desire? The hands were gone from his throat. He gulped for air even as a flood of searing heat scored him from within. And then he sank into darkness. When he opened his eyes, Keisuke was gone. Squinting at the pale light pouring through the doorway, he tried to rise and grimaced at the stabbing pain that ran through him. The pain triggered a flood of graphic memories. The searing pain of penetration, the hands around his throat, Keisuke's hot breath and fevered whispers. An intense disgust welled up in him, and his hand flew to his mouth. What hurt more than the pain, more than anything, was the shame, the knowledge that he had been disgraced. When he finally managed to rouse his aching body, he found his jacket draped over his hips, as though to keep them covered. It only served to heighten his misery. He looked away, repelled by the sight of his own body. Was this Rain's fault? All of it? Lacking a target for his fury, his only option was to force himself to swallow it down.
くそ。
Nursing his bruised body, Akira slowly got his things and stood up. He was exhausted, but it could wait. He just wanted to get out of this place as fast as possible. His foot hit something as he began limping forward. A soiled tag and a cross with a rosary. Akira appeared in his mind's eye, clutching the cross with a brooding look on his face. He swallowed the lump that had formed in his throat, then picked up the tag and the cross. He closed his fist around them for a moment, before putting them in his jacket pocket. On the way out, his hand brushed against a piece of paper. He plucked it out. Arbitrous letter. We shall discuss matters such as the friend who accompanied you. Did he mean Keisuke? Keisuke's clouded eyes resurfaced in Akira's memory. Right now, he couldn't stand to remember any of it. He shook his head to dispel the image. What did Arbiter know? There was only one way to find out. Wiping his aching legs into motion, he staggered out of the coffee shop.